Good morning, everybody. Bright and early, and welcome to the next episode of the Rational Trader podcast. JD here with my co-host Louis Navellier. Good morning, Louis.
Morning.
This is the week of college commencements, and I know you had your daughters this week and mine as well. So congratulations, and it's exciting to see the next generation enter the real world.
Well, mine's already working. She has a channel, Navellier Market Buzz, and YouTube's paying her for all her hits.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Hmm.
I've seen her work. She's a film school graduate. The production quality of your podcast is fantastic.
Hmm. Thanks.
Well, good for her. That's exciting. It is a Friday before Memorial Weekend, Louis, and I was worried that we're recording this prior to the market opening on Friday, that we wouldn't have much to talk about. The market's volume was pretty slow yesterday, and it's going to be slower today. But there is big news breaking. The Trump tout sheet is busy manipulating the markets lower today.
Well, because he's threatening more tariffs, Europe and on Apple, and Europe apparently has a new package that they want to get through us, but it's a nightmare for the EU because they have 27 nations. In the
Right.
meantime, he gave Britain a much better deal than they're going to get. So it's interesting. We'll see
I
how
mean,
it
I
all
don't know
unfolds.
if you were, I'm sure you recall, and I, being a political science nut job, I follow this stuff pretty closely. But pre-European Union, you had those same 27 countries with the best you could say about Europe is that they were on the decimal system or
Yeah.
the metric system, not
Mhm.
decimal system, the metric system. And so the point being, you had those 27 countries pre-European Union, all with different regulations, all with different currencies. It was the epitome of inefficiency.
Well, the problem is the European Union is a monetary trade union, but it's also very political now. And because Brussels has messed with all the people that are not really pro EU. So Marie Le Pen in France is now banned from running for president. The first guy that ran the Romanian runoff in the presidential election has been disqualified. They've messed with Maloney's, one of her associates. They're messing around in Poland, trying to get rid of a couple media outlets. Poland's had the first round of elections. They'll have another round, and not everybody wants to be governed by Brussels. And so I think the European Union is going to break up. I think it started with the farm protests. And just so everybody knows what happened is to comply with the Paris Climate Accord, you have to shut down 30% of your farmland and return to natural state. Now, when they did that to the Netherlands, they drained the sea for farmland. And then you got to shut down 30%. Anyway, and then you had to cull your herds. So they killed 600,000 dairy cows in Ireland. And then you also had to use organic versus chemical fertilizer.
Right.
So no nitrogen, no potash. Anyway, so what it does when you're a farmer, it makes you less productive. And then the EU imports food from Latin America that's not done this way. So they had protests everywhere. And that started the right wing movements in Europe.
Sure.
And to this day, John Deere can't sell tractors to Europe because the farmers are doing so poorly. So we're going to have Mr. Merz, the German chancellor, meet with Trump in the upcoming weeks. And Trump wants him to move, well, he wants Germany to move their entire auto industry to America because their electricity in Germany is 4 times what it is with us because they shut down the nuclear plants. And also by 2035, they can't make a car with an engine in it. And so what's happening is they Volkswagen's doing pretty good in EVs. They just passed Tesla, and their sales are actually up, but then their profits drop 40% because they don't make as much money in EV as they do on a vehicle with an engine. So Trump's proposing that they all move all their manufacturing to America, cheap electricity, 5 southern states throwing incentives. He says, I'll give all your workers work visas. You can move them too. And the European Union's destroying the country. And on top of that, they got a demographic problem where they just got too darn old. So it's just a mess and it's very sad. And but the Mertz meeting is going to be very interesting. So we ordered a Porsche, which is on a boat right now. And normally, when you order a Porsche, you can get the sticker, and I can't get the sticker. So I'm not sure what they're going to charge for it. Most of the Porsches are in order, they're not putting anything on them, but there's no 911s in dealerships now. They're new. I mean,
Right.
there's a lot of chaos going on, and so we'll see what happens. And it's getting to be very, very interesting.
You spent your article in this week's Market Mail, Louis, talking about tariffs and not being inflationary. So I'm curious, I guess, what do you think happens here? Let's just use Apple as an example. If they do not accommodate the desires of the president and he does indeed charge them a 25% tariff on phones that are not made in the US, does Apple eat that, I guess I don't really know how it's going to play out.
Well, knowing Tim Cook, I assume he would meet with Donald and they'd work it out.
Apparently, right. I would assume that as well. But apparently, he was in the White House earlier this week. So those discussions did not go so well.
Well, he's played onshore, $500 billion, most centers. And we have Apple in Reno. I'm in New York now, but Apple and Google have huge server farms in Reno. So it'll be interesting. The best way to deal with President Trump is to negotiate with him. And he says these outrageous things to put you at a disadvantage. And so if my name is Tim Cook, I say, okay, Donald, I'm going to on your request, but I just want you to know it's going to take some time.
Well,
But
it seems what got Trump's ire is that Apple announced a big investment in India to make
mhm.
iPhones.
Well, that's Foxconn. Yeah.
So
And
speaking of
Foxconn is in India, and they've been doing that. And, the iPhones are complicated. So,
Speaking of Foxconn, I wanted to see if you knew, this is fascinating to me because Foxconn was going to build a huge plant in Wisconsin.
yeah, I remember.
And I think might have built it. I mean, maybe they're vacant or maybe they're
Yeah.
using it for a data center now. But yeah, I mean, there have to build in America that
Yeah.
haven't worked.
Yeah, I know. But, I mean, Trump wants me to pay the tariffs. Yeah.
From
Right.
a trading standpoint, I mean, maybe you agree with me on this, but it does seem like Trump is very active when volatility is relatively low and markets are calm. And we are at levels that, we were Liberation Day. It's almost got money in the bank, and he's like, okay, I now.
Yeah, but he is a money manager now. That was
That's
announced
right.
on April 17th on True Social. And they have four Trump themed portfolios, I think like make the US energy independent, things like that, but which we are. But the I don't know what they're in the portfolios. They should be on True Social, but I think it's just how the guy negotiates.
I
And
know. I know.
we gotta get used to him and everybody can calm down.
Yeah, I bring it up not because I'm going to be critical. I think I think pre-market futures are pointing to, the Dow's futures 550 points, NASDAQ down 350 points,
Mhm.
the Russell 2000 down. And this is a Friday before a holiday. So
Mhm.
whatever happens today will likely accelerate on Tuesday. And then you'll get a Tuesday or Wednesday
Yeah, I wouldn't say
saying
we're
it's a great time to buy stocks.
I wouldn't say it's going to carry over to Tuesday. I mean, traders like to clear inventory on long holiday weekends,
Hmm.
so there's natural. And then early in the week do better. Later in the week, they tend to clear inventory. So I'm not surprised. So I don't think this has anything to do with Tuesday's opening.
Yeah, I just it's burned onto my psyche that a week Friday. It's 1987, right? Black
Yeah.
Monday.
Well, he's creating trading opportunities for you. You like to trade, and I
That's
like to
right.
invest. So this is
Yeah,
my
and those
plan.
are two different things. I
Yeah,
appreciate that.
yeah. It doesn't change my plan at all. I mean, Navellier announces on Wednesday and things to look forward to. After that's Costco. Earnings season's winding down, and
Well, of course, NVIDIA.
yeah, yeah. No, Nvidia is great. It's and Jensen actually criticized that the ban on China's
Right.
and
He was very critical
Nvidia
of
just
that.
started a facility in Shanghai.
Hmm.
It's a big work with China. President Xi is an authoritarian, and he fired most of the reformers in China. So, we can't just ignore China. Big.
No. And it's nice having Besant kind of in front on China and such an
Yeah,
important negotiation. He's certainly handling himself very well.
yeah. But your daughter that speaks Mandarin, is she going to work?
Well, she is doing an internship at Wells Fargo during the summer, and then in August she'll be leaving for Taiwan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, she'll know better than. So
Well, her last time she was in Taiwan, she was noting, it's all just there's not going to be of Taiwan.
I don't think so. China does it politically first. If you look at Hong Kong, which of course was great, given to them, they they put their gal in charge of the city to help better facilitate merging in with China. And they've been trying to get certain people elected in Taiwan that are pro mainland China,
That's right.
and that hasn't happened yet. But yeah,
Yeah,
no,
they played.
yeah, the long game. She's always, firing his generals and stuff like. See, the problem with Chi is he can't really travel now because he's afraid when he comes back he won't be in charge. So he can do little quick trips to Vietnam and Malaysia and nearby. It's going to be hard for him to meet Trump.
Mhm.
Trump might have to know. I don't even know if he has to get to Hawaii.
Well, he can take air.
Yeah, no, that won't be ready. They're going to do that for his. Do you saw what happened when
The destroyer capsized.
uh-huh. And and Iran had two navies in their harbors. That was a while ago.
Oh yeah,
So, you get these societies, well, nothing to do with that, might have flooded part of it, but and anyway. But obviously in North Korea they don't have good engineers because they put too much weight on that boat and it just there's a
capsized.
famous when you go to Stockholm, famous boat that at the bottom of the bay, and Sweden was the powerhouse, centuries ago. So the king built this big to intimidate everybody. And as soon as it went out there, it sunk because it was too heavy. And so it's in this museum in Sweden. Impressive, you know.
Sure.
It's all hand carved and heavy, and yeah, this we've seen this before.
Well, in design was a story not on ships per se, but on devices. And Apple's design guy that several years ago is in forces with Chat GPT, and I was fascinated because the story is that there's some new device going to be coming out with. Any ideas on what that's going to be?
No, but I've been with my daughter and her friends. Know more about Chat GPT and AI than most people. It's obviously infecting the young people. It is. It is. So, when we do Navellier Market Bus, we what our headline should be because it knows what gets hits on the internet, whether that's right or wrong. So,
Oh, funny.
and here's something that's very interesting. We're from the
Right.
newsletter world. They do sensationalize things. But I've noticed CNBC's got newsletter type articles. Find a ten bagger. CNBC came out with that this week, and that's that's stolen right out of the newsletter division. And then Barron's did this article on IONQ on the quantum computing, and the IONQ founder wanted to be didn't that the video of the quantum computing and the stock shot up almost 40% yesterday. All the other quantum computing stocks up with it as well. And I'm just sitting there thinking like, when did the normal media become the newsletter? Okay.
Right.
It's interesting because we did that interview on Navellier Market Buzz with Paul Hickey, who's an extremely serious institutional guy. I mean, his subscribers are institutional. Okay. I mean, as for stockbrokers and all. He blasted out our interview to all his. And of course, my Market Buzz has our stock grader. Every time we talk about stock, here's the grade pops up, you know. So it's interesting. It's the newsletter is merging with the mainstream media world, and I just find it interesting.
Yeah, I mean the social media has really, I mean TikTok and
Yeah, Google. I was on CNBC 16. So 9 years ago, it was January. I was kind of bearish time, and I had all these defensive stocks.
Hmm.
So Joe Kernan called me a weenie, and oh, I want to make 300%. Anyway, so I said, well, you know, it's gun stocks, which were hot at that time. Sternberger and Smith and Wesson.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
they asked why, and I says because Obama's the best gun salesman on the planet.
that's right.
And
So to my air.
yeah, and so I ended up on the cover of that day. And 2 days later, I was on the cover of New York Times. And they were happy because they're all getting all these hits.
Oh,
Okay.
funny.
And you can still Google Navellier Obama and articles up, but it's just very, very interesting. Now everybody should sell the bearish ones, you know. So that would be Mark Chaikin and Porter Stansberry and traditionally been the biggest newsletters out there.
Yeah. Well, Louis, you mentioned the gun stocks, and that made me thinking to maybe spend the last 5 to 10 minutes here talking about individual stocks. And I'm curious in your models if there are any new sectors where we are overbought, and I'm guessing that the number of buys, your universe has shrunken over the last couple of weeks.
Well, I'm going to do the testing. We wait till the end of each quarterly earnings season to retest our models because we got to have to know the breadth and power. How deep can we data mine? So in the previous quarter, that we could be in the top 45% of fundamentals, but we do the quant, we got to be in the top 5%. So we'll tweak those models again, not this week, but the following week, and we'll see what the pattern is.
Okay.
But the truth of the matter is that it looks like a very narrow market. I mean, the strongest sector was clearly the semis. But from the Trump's Middle
Well,
Eastern trip,
this week, the strength was really in, you made a note of this with your special quantum computing. Those
yeah,
stocks really exploded. Speaking
yeah,
of, 10 baggers.
yeah, yeah, and my publishers because they IO in some time, and then we've also been pushing D Wave, and those one Q is up by I think 1,400% in the past year, and then D Wave's spectacular as well. So I might have inverted those, but one of them's up 1,400% past year. But
Yeah,
they've been
yeah.
recommending them for a long time, and they were the leaders yesterday. It's a little,
Q yesterday on Thursday was up 36.5%.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
A year ago, IONQ was trading below $10 a share, close to $50 a
yeah,
share.
yeah, yeah. So, yeah, no, it's been a big winner. But IO and Wave, just QBTS, they both have good sales growth. They're not earning money yet, but they've both been beating analyst estimates. So they're the darlings, just so everybody understands what quantum computing, why it's a big deal. NVIDIA can't make its chips faster by the end of the decade. There are going to be two more reiterations of the current Blackwell chip, and they already have the names of each chip. But right now, there's 208 billion transistors on a NVIDIA GPU.
Okay.
And obviously, the transistors are very tiny. And going to happen towards the decade, they can't put more transistors on. They're approaching the atomic level. And, you can't split an atom to make a transistor. So the way to speed up is to do the quantum computing, use a one and a zero instead of a one or a zero. So what's been going on, everybody's trying to figure out the architecture, the programming language to do quantum computing. Because if quantum computing is a little small modular reactor, it doesn't really exist yet. Although NVIDIA has a quantum cloud simulator, they had a contest, the D-Wave one. And Google's going to try to build a quantum computer, but right now it's the same thing as the small modular reactors. Like, does anybody have one? You know?
Right, right. And speaking of,
gonna make a hole in there to
these
live.
companies are generating any profits of any sort, so
Yeah, so
you've
they're
got that issue
very
too.
frothy, speculative stocks, but there's also another quantum computing companies in the public can be hot. So yeah, so these didn't don't go in our managed accounts. I buy them if I need to buy them, but managed accounts we only buy things that earn money. Okay,
Hmm.
so I can on these things, but obviously they're pretty frothy.
Let's maybe talk about companies that are making money and profits, expanding margins. Are there any names we can leave people with before we call it a Memorial Weekend here?
Yeah, I mean, I see everything gets so overbought. It's hard to mention. My top holdings are Lilly is a big holding,
Well,
um,
Lilly sold off here, so I was just going
because
to ask you
it
about.
Trump drug prices, yeah.
Hmm?
But Lilly did beat Novo Nordisk at its own game, and the president of Novo Nordisk was had resigned, and Novo Nordisk is using him and hers, a compound pharmacy outfit, to make their GLP-1 drugs. So him and hers is a good buy near term. It pulled back the other day. Lilly's a good buy. There's patents on these drugs, and I'm sure there's going to be issues and all that kind of stuff. So, what Trump wants, he doesn't always get because, there's this thing law. So, it's how it all works.
Louis, there were a couple about this week on our Two Sigma trading videos. Quest Diagnostics, DGX,
Yeah,
is a name that folks can maybe find a here at these
yeah.
levels. Now, another name I'm kind of liking just because I like the dynamic of Fair Isaac, FICO. It's been beaten down on some speculation about the administration hammering the credit bureaus and the mortgage process and accusing the industry of being too expensive. But the
Credit scores aren't good. So, Fair Isaac. Funny when you do financials, which I don't do because I'm an analyst and I know too much. The one comment I'd have is there's some financials that have no credit risk, like Fair Isaac, like Visa, MasterCard, and they've done pretty good, because there's times that are not ideal for the banks, the curve or rising rates and things that kind of destabilize recessions, and those financials that aren't really financials, Fair Isaac will do those times.
sure,
But
sure.
the way the world works today, banks will not lend you money unless you have a perfect credit score. And if you're less than perfect for any reason, they pawn you off to somebody else who'll mark up the interest rates. And that's why the private credit industry is so big. And a lot of people are blaming Dodd-Frank for the rise of private credit because they hamstrung the banks so bad that they just fueled of course, private credit will now yield up to 11% to investors. The only problem with private credit is they are leveraging debt. And so one day that might not go well, and then we'll have a new black swan event. And we can thank Barney Frank again for it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Louis, the market is maybe going to open the door depending on what happens today. But let's just leave it at that. I
Okay.
hope you and your family enjoy the Memorial Weekend and appreciate your thoughts and comments. This is JD for the Rational Trader Podcast, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Louis and I'll be back next week. That I'm looking forward to your report on sectors that look attractive, Louis. And take care, everybody.